Doug Wiley of Police Magazine. I'm here with my good friend Nick Greco. We're here at ILEETA 2019 in St. Louis, Missouri. And already at the time of this recording, we've had 50 that we know of law enforcement officer suicides. Nick, you and I both serve on the board of directors for Blue Help.
Yes.
Blue Help is an organization that not only tracks statistics like police officer suicide, but also works to try to prevent law enforcement officer suicide through resiliency training and a whole variety of other things. And we could talk in depth about Blue Help, but I want to talk more about what you and I do collectively and with the rest of the board and all of the instructors with Blue Help to help increase awareness and work to try to mitigate this terrible problem of law enforcement officer suicide.
So a number of things that we're doing is, one, like you've mentioned, we've had a number of suicides, and it's not even the end of March, so the first quarter's not even done. We have seen in the last 3 years line of duty deaths, which are horrendous in and of themselves, but suicide is now surpassing the last 3 years of the data we've collected with Blue Help, and that's one of the things that we're the only organization for the last now moving on to 4 years, collecting data across 25 data points and also using narratives. And we're confirming these suicides, and the ones, like you said, we know about. And so that's one area, that's one aspect of Blue Help that we're doing, is collecting valuable data and looking at all the data points. And that is helping us to also look at what we need to do to mitigate and eventually stop police suicide. So one of the things that we're big advocates of is educating, and we have various training that some of us go out and do training at various departments. We also have our 2-day conferences. We're having one in Chicago this year. We're also going to have one out in Michigan as well. Both of those training conferences are very powerful. We talk about things like post-traumatic stress. We talk about things of suicide awareness and prevention, wellness for family, wellness for the department, what command staff can do. These are a few of the things we're doing. We also do honor individuals that have died by suicide. We try to take care of their families through honor boxes. These honor boxes it's not a flag, it's what it is that honor box entails are a lot of these officers leave behind small children and wives or husbands, and we provide items such as diapers and clothes and other items that they need that we take for granted every day that we go out to the store and get. This is something that no matter where the suicide happens in the country, we're able to go ahead and provide these items to them. So those are some of the things that we're doing. We're also, one of the big things we're going to be at this year is having our first Police Week dinner. That's going to be very huge for us. We're also forming a number of partnerships with organizations as well. Mm-hmm. So the word is getting out there about Blue Help. The word is also getting out to command staff because they're contacting us and they want us to understand. They want to understand what's happening in their department, how they can circumvent it, because they don't want to lose good officers. They don't want to lose officers to line of duty deaths, and they surely don't want to lose an officer to suicide.
Yeah. One of the things that I find extremely powerful about the seminars and the instruction that Blue Help provides to police agencies and individuals is that we bring into the conversation women, widows, mm-hmm. Who have lost an officer by suicide, and they speak powerfully about the fact that in many, many cases there were warning signs, they just didn't put the two and two together. They mm-hmm. didn't see, they saw the warning signs, they just didn't know what they meant. And that's also true for officers. I talked to a lot of officers who have lost a colleague to suicide, and they will say he started behaving erratically, taking more risks and doing more dangerous mm-hmm. things, saying things like, will you be there for my kids if I'm gone? And in retrospect, they become so crystal clear, but in the moment and at that time, a lot of times we just don't pick up on those clues. And you see an officer who is approaching crisis or is in crisis and having thoughts of suicide or self-harm. And even when you see it and it registers and you go, oh boy, that guy might need some help. A lot of times officers in particular, but family members as well, don't take action. You know, you can see and say whatever, but you got to do. You know, you got to go that next step, and those are difficult conversations to have. Hey, man, are you okay? And or just, you know, say, hey, man, I think you could do well by going to peer support, or maybe going to see a professional doctor, you know, medical.
Just someone to talk to. Yeah.
Exactly. Clergy, you know, it's just someone to kind of get the stuff out, because law enforcement is a very, very stressful, you know, profession. And, you know, if Navy SEALs are going for quarterly meetings with a psychologist just to talk for no reason other than that's what they're required to do, then police officers can do that too, right?
Yeah, they can do it. And that's one of the other things that we're encouraging with Blue Help, and also with my company, C3 Education and Research. When I do a lot of training, what I'll do, I will tell officers, we want to get you the treatment that you need to do now, rather than have something blow up at the end. We want you to have that pressure relief valve. Whether you go for, you know, to see somebody out in an outpatient setting for a couple sessions, but you have to have somebody to talk to. Also, open things up. Talk with your spouse or partner. You don't have to tell them the gory details, but talk to them. I had a bad day. This day was rough for me. Yeah, we lost somebody. We had there was a shooting, or there was a child that drowned. I can't tell you all the details, but I need a hug. I just need you to be there for me. I need a few minutes to talk about this, or I need a few minutes just to decompress. You know, just be able to. It's okay to feel rotten. It's okay to talk and say, I feel like crap. But you have to be able to admit that. You can't keep holding it in. When we repress so much, that's when eventually it comes out in very negative ways. I want to go back to something you said about the subtle cues. A lot of people, and I want to make it very clear that family members who have lost someone to suicide, they can't blame themselves for missing these things. They're so subtle. Sometimes it's somebody doesn't want to go to a party. They just like, oh, I want to veg out. I just don't want to do anything. Or you start looking at some of the family photos, recent family photos, and you see they're kind of despondent, or they're not smiling, or they're not close to everybody in there.
Or not even in the photo.
Yes.
You know, that's a lot of times what we see is, you know, officers will withdraw from the things that used to give them joy, whether it's fishing or hunting or badminton or whatever it is. You know, they stop doing the things that they like to do. They withdraw from their peers and their family. And, you know, the lack of presence because just like a wounded cat, they go off and hide. They want to hide the fact that they're wounded. And officers who are emotionally, mentally wounded, you know, they will often do their very level best to conceal that. You know, but you look at things like sudden weight gain or sudden weight loss. You look at things like increase in the use of alcohol or whatever.
Not working out much.
Right.
Had a guy say, you know, his buddy, he put his hand on his shoulder, and he told him, hey, you're not working out, you're a little soft now. And a few days later, he had killed himself. And he's like, that was my cue. I missed it. And he feels bad about it. But it is a cue, but it's so subtle. Yeah. And this is a guy who worked out all the time.
Right. And that's part of what Blue Help is doing. You know, the E in help is education.
Yes.
You know, so, you know, the more that we teach law enforcement leaders, line level leaders, sergeants, to have a greater awareness, you know, a heightened sense of sensitivity to these types of signs, and then having again the fortitude to follow through on that. And if everything's okay and you just picked up on something that was a false signal, I'd rather have, you know, a false positive, right? And because what you do is say, look, I care about you enough that I want to make sure that you're okay. And it's okay to not be okay, you know, but we also have to change the culture in law enforcement that, you know, a lot of cops are afraid to seek, especially the law enforcement peer assistance program, because they feel they'll be stigmatized, that they'll be put, you know, passed up for promotion, that they'll be, you know, the people will be talking behind their back. So we have to change that culture in law enforcement as well.
And it has to come from the top down. It can't be lip service. It has to be supported and say, I want you to seek help. And a lot of peer support programs within the departments have that built in, where the chief says, if you need help, you come to me. If I think you have a tough situation, myself or another designee will also allow that. And there's no shame in getting that that treatment to see somebody for counseling, but it has to be backed up in the department. And that's where the culture has to change as well, like you said.
Yeah. Thank you very much for
Thank
everything
you.
that you do for law enforcement. I'm proud to serve with you on the board of Blue Help. Hopefully, we can fix some of this this terrible issue of law enforcement officer suicide. And thank you again for your time today.
Thank you.
Doug Wiley, Police Magazine.